I'd like to introduce Amy, who is going to be the first speaker of the day. And it's I'm very happy. Amy is an MD and FA CEP and she's a both certified emergency medicine physician, and she has almost got 30 years of experience in clinical practices, corporate leadership, and research. And the great thing is she's a CEO for a Tough Life, and she's the author of the forthcoming book Powerhouse Living. And I'm even very happy, she empowers individuals and organizers to build resilience, reduce chronic diseases, and lead with strength and purpose. That's great. I could give a few insights about and I would like to even ask Annie to start with, so that the others will even be energized and happy for the day. Well, it's all yours, Amy. You can start.
Great. I am just going to try to figure out down here how to share my screen because I'm looking.
I'll do one thing. I'll do it for you, and your presentation is already with us. We are going to
So you're
share
gonna.
it.
No, if you have it, we can. If you want to load it up, that would be fine, and we can have you control. That would be perfect.
Yeah, we are going to control it, and we'll do it for you, and you can start.
Wonderful. And everyone, you can hear me well? I know there's a lot of
Presentation
feedback
is
right
ready. We can do it, and we are
now.
going to show it. Yep.
Sure. I think someone might, and it could be just a double microphone. I think someone has their microphone on right now. Are you getting a lot of feedback?
Maybe I'll just see. Let me just check.
Okay, I've been talking too much.
Somebody is there.
There is definitely somebody yelling in the background.
Exactly. So, our speakers, please. It's an event, and request all to stop their background sounds. So it's very important. If not, you please keep yourself in mute. It would be better. So it's not a request.
I think it's whoever's couch is showing right now. It sounds like there are some. I always love to have extra children in the lecture, but it sounds like the children are screaming right now.
Yeah, I guess that's correct. Yeah. So, please, I request you guys, if there's any background issue, I request you to kindly mute it. So that would be better.
I am not sure that they are by their computer.
Maybe.
There we go.
Yes. Yeah, I did it. I did it for you.
Oh, well, wonderful. If you would be so kind as to pull up my slides, and since I am not in control, and welcome to everyone. It's very exciting to be here from Orlando. It's 5 in the morning, but I'm a night shift doc, so this is my evening as well. So welcome to everyone. And if you have my slides, because I am just looking at myself right now, and so I will wait on you, sir.
Your presentation is on the way. We're going to do it for you.
Wonderful. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And unfortunately, and I put in the comments, in the chat comments, my emails. I have two, whatever is easiest for everyone, just because I am unfortunately going to have to take a nap before I go back to work. So I do appreciate the folks at Helix who were kind enough to put me, front load me at the beginning. I would love to see everyone's presentation. I will definitely catch up with recordings of it, but I have to nap before I go back to work. So I am very excited today, though, to present to you Putting the Bloom on STEM, the importance of female representation in science in the C-suite. Are we good to start, sir, or would you like me to wait?
Yeah, yeah, we can start. People are
Wonderful.
there.
Beautiful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. And it looks like there's a little bit of a formatting issue, but no problem. So we'll just go to my disclosure slide, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I have affiliations. They're not responsible. They haven't reviewed. There's no bias in this slide. And I always like to say there's one little ethical bias.
Okay. Yeah.
And that ethical bias is the fact that I am a female. And so my ethical bias in that is I have benefited throughout my entire life because of the very unique things that being a female actually brings to science and medicine. I think the beautiful thing about STEAM and STEM is it is open and available to everyone. But one of the things that I hope to show very clearly in the lecture is that women do bring some really unique characteristics that makes us very specifically motivated and actually successful in STEAM and STEM. So today we're going to talk about STEAM versus STEM, some global statistics. This is a global lecture. And to put it in context, I gave a very similar lecture about 3 weeks ago in Wisconsin in the United States. And it was very, very interesting to see a primarily US and Canadian based audience because they weren't aware of a lot of the global statistics. So I find it very interesting because this is a global audience. We're going to talk about how STEM skills translate into leadership competence and the impact of STEM education on workforce meritocracy, infrastructure, innovation, and empowerment. Next slide, please. So STEAM versus STEM. In 2001, the acronym was introduced at the U.S. Science Foundation. It's an interdisciplinary curriculum which focuses on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM. Now, STEAM adds an arts to the curriculum, which some people do disagree with. I think it actually is integral to it because it's that creativity. It's the softer sciences, but a lot of what we do in science, because it's innovation based, it requires that creativity. It's the same concept that people who are musicians tend to be good mathematicians and people who are mathematicians tend to be good musicians. It's that part of the brain. Next slide, please. So the STEM disparity scope. So there is a great disparity because women globally are about 28 to 35% of the STEM workforce. And societal, economic, and political inequalities contribute to the disparity because sometimes in some countries it's higher, in some countries it's lower, but it tends to be uniquely around 28 to 35%. Now, despite efforts to narrow these gender gaps, global voids exist at every single level of education and career progression. Next slide. So I love the history, and this, when I presented this a few weeks ago, this was to a group of women, all college-based professors, students, professionals, and very few of them knew this STEM history, which I think shows the lack of education into our historical role models. So science has been practiced by ancient women thousands of years, contributing to medicine, botany, algebra, astronomy, and geometry specifically. Those are the earliest records we have. In the Middle Ages in Europe and the Middle East, women studied nature and math. It was in Christian monasteries and actually Islamic madrasas as well. And I do apologize if I'm mangling my accent. Medieval female nobles and daughters of affluent families and nuns were educated by private tutors, but they could not be admitted to universities. Next slide. Christian universities were founded to then train clergy. They still excluded women, and women were barred from higher education until the 19th century when in 1837, Oberlin College, which is in Ohio in the United States, was the first formal college to admit women. And interestingly enough, I spoke in Wisconsin, the first woman admitted to University of Wisconsin wasn't until the late 1800s. So it's been quite a while for that formal education. You may have heard the term, obviously, computers. Well, as we all do, the first computers, quote unquote, were female mathematicians. Some computers were advanced to higher education related fields, and this was most famously in a beautiful film that, if you haven't seen, that looked at sort of the hidden women in the NASA system that actually brought the Mercury rockets to space. Next slide, please. So women's STEM inclusion globally increased in the 1970s and 1980s. And currently, some fields like biotech actually have greater than 50% female participation. In 2023, women are 50% of the workforce, but we still remain less than 30% of STEM workers. And these historical scientific contributions are often omitted or diminished. Next slide. This is what's known as the Matilda effect. Now, the Matilda effect is a bias resulting in the under-recognition and marginalization of women's science contributions. Achievements of females are often attributed to male colleagues, or women's contributions are dismissed or lessened, unfortunately. And this was named for the suffragist and abolitionist Matilda Gage. And the term itself was coined in 1993 by Margaret Rossier, who she is a science historian. It's called the Matilda effect. And here are a few examples. Next slide, please. And these are just 7 examples. Now, I think the most famous and the name that people would most recognize on this list is Rosalind Franklin. She produced the first X-ray image molecular structure of DNA. I think we all, at this point, know Rosalind Franklin. Of course, she never received the Nobel Prize. We all know Watson and Crick, but she never received the Nobel Prize, and unfortunately passed away before she could even be considered. How many of the names on this list have you heard? And again, I presented this about 3 weeks ago in a room full of very educated women, many PhDs, lots in science, lots in biology, chemistry, and they didn't know these names, which I think is a sad representation of our US and Canadian educational system. But to me, even fascinating, like Lisa Meitner, she discovered nuclear fission. 46 times this woman was nominated for a Nobel Prize and never received it. 46 times. There's no male that's been nominated 46 times for a Nobel Prize, and yet we do not know these names. As I said in the chat, you have my emails. I would love to forward this presentation to you so you could actually write these names down, investigate them. Their histories are fascinating. Next slide, please. So what is the scope of the problem? Well, even in female concentrated industries, women have lower representation in STEM versus non-STEM. So for example, in education, greater than 50% of those in non-STEM educational occupations in 30 out of 31 countries, and yet less than 50% representation in STEM educational occupations in 28 of 31 countries. And this was a fairly recent LinkedIn survey, very good data. And it's, again, consistent pretty much across the board globally. Next slide, please. STEM gap employment by country and gender. So I'd like you to take a look at this slide. Men are in the lightest blue, so the top line. Women are in sort of the more vibrant blue, second line. And the gap is what I want you to focus on, the dark blue. So the gap is the third column. And if you look at the gap in representation for the share of workers in STEM, the gaps are fairly significant, ranging anywhere from about 17%, a little bit over 18%, to nothing less than about 7%. And that is a gap between the employment for men and women in countries that are ranging from Asia, the United States, Europe, or soon to Central America as well. And that is a huge employment gap by country and gender. So let's look at why. Next slide, please. And by the way, if anyone does have any questions, I'm not currently looking at a chat, so we can talk at the end, or you can always email me. So globally, our main professions are split along gender lines. If you can see on the top of the graphic, we see things like science and engineering, metal workers, science professionals, but also a lot of physical jobs as well, but like builders. But when they talk about builders, these tend to be skilled builders, oil rigs types things. When you look at professions for gender lines for women, we see a lot of personal carers, cleaners. There is health technology and teachers. Teachers are predominantly educators, and that has been historically. But you can see a very specific profession split in gender lines. And because women are less than 50% STEM in every country, when we look, it's interesting at the countries that do have a higher level: Finland, France, Italy, Philippines, Singapore, and Spain. What I found fascinating is the US is not represented here. And we consider ourselves a very female forward and female education supportive environment, and we are not on this list. I know we have a global audience. It's curious if your countries are on that list too. Our greatest disparities are in engineering and computer sciences. And of course, there's always more males in the hard sciences and more women in the softer sciences: psychology, poli-sci, sociology, which is, it again fits along the lines of the more mathematical based sciences versus the softer sciences. Next slide, please. And I'm going to ask, and I do apologize, I don't mean to offend, if you do have your microphone on, I'm now getting a lot of feedback, and I do apologize. I can talk over everyone, but I don't want to yell this morning. So this gap disparity is called leaky pipeline. About 65% of tech recruiters state a hiring bias due to historically low retention. Again, this is global, not just in the United States. Sadly, almost 60% of women in what we call TMT, or technology, media, and telecom, plan to leave their jobs within 2 years of hiring because of work-life balance. And that is a terrible thing, to spend all of your time achieving a technology degree and training and then leave within a very quick amount of time. The time commitment, the financial equipment is great, and yet we're not staying in these jobs. Interestingly, only India, of all the countries surveyed, has over 40% women retained in STEM 5 years post-graduation. There's also disproportionate layoffs because women are almost 2 times more likely to be laid off than men. And that's because they often have less seniority. First hired is first fired, if that's a saying that is often in business. And during the 2022 tech crash, 69% of the people laid off were female. Globally, men have higher STEM job retention, yet about 30 to 60% of global STEM graduates, male and female, do not work in a STEM job. That points to the fact that this is not uniquely a female problem, but disproportionately a female problem. Now, 45% of US STEM majors take a postgraduate non-STEM job, and 20% of college STEM majors in graduate school are studying a non-STEM science. Very interesting statistics. Next slide, please. There are different motivations for this leaky pipeline. For women considering leaving the STEM field, currently, women say, well, maybe I'm not leaving it, but they may have left STEM before. But why do we think about leaving? Well, more flexibility. There's a large lack of support, which is cited. They're looking at a different industry, whether it's STEM or non-STEM, more meaningful work. And a lot of times the meaningful is because they're in a lower end position. Now, whether they're an internship and building themselves up, they're not in a leadership position. And some people don't necessarily find meaning in that, which I find honestly sad, because it's actually, you need to have that base in education and that base of experience before you can rise in that company or your industry. We do face a bit of discrimination at work. And when I say a bit, it can be every single day or something that just cannot be overcome. Sometimes it can be as simple as not having enough bathroom space. That is a form of discrimination, and it is not uncommon, certainly as well in the US. When we look at men in STEM versus women, men, about 20% of men actually have said they've experienced gender discrimination at work. It doesn't tease out whether it's from men or women, which I would have found interesting, but men as well. Men in STEM, about 7% feel their gender has made it harder to succeed at work, but versus 20% again, disproportionately female. I find fascinating, though, that almost 30% of men feel that sexual harassment is a problem in their workplace, and women is about 36%. So it's not uniquely female, disproportionately. To me, it's very interesting statistics because you cannot examine the problems of females in STEM without understanding also the problems that are universal to men and women, and then the problems that are also unique to men. You have to look at the full picture. That's what scientists do. Next slide, please. So female tech and STEM workforce. So this is global, but female staff percentage in major tech companies is about 30%. Apple, Google, Microsoft. Those are the three that I've chosen here. But if you look at the tech leadership, interesting in these three companies, it also happens to be about 30%, which is unique. That's very unique because although in general only about 25% of C-suite leaders are women, in these particular tech companies, it's 30% representation, but they also have the equal representation on the C-suite level. So that is, to me, very interesting. The sad part of this is only 5% represent a racial minority in that particular country. So that is terribly underrepresented throughout, and that's male and females. Next slide, please. Despite educational gaps, women are very tech motivated. For bachelor's degrees, computer science and IT, engineering, economics, and physical science are the most common. And STEM enrollment is slowly increasing, but still disproportionately low. And 46% of all workers will require some additional training due to lack of STEM education. And the most common thing now is, of course, in AI, which is exploding throughout all industries, but primarily through the STEM industries. The top 3 tech-related topics women are interested in are analytics, leadership and management, and specifically project management, which is a very tech-oriented field that people don't think is tech-oriented because it tends to have a lot of that softer science in it as well, but it's very tech-oriented. Next slide. The economic impacts. Well, STEM pays more than non-STEM. It's generally in life, the more education, if in the technology STEM fields, the more educational level you have, the higher your salary is going to be. This is independent of race, ethnicity, sex, or disability. And the average is greater than 2/3 higher wage. It's not small. So and these are US numbers, so I do apologize, they're US numbers, but the STEM median annual wage as of about a year and a half ago, is almost $100,000, whereas a non-STEM median range is $44,000. Now, STEM plus a bachelor's median salary is almost double a non-STEM plus a bachelor's, and a STEM without a bachelor's is greater than 60% higher versus a non-STEM without a bachelor's degree. So across the board for all STEM versus non-STEM educations. Next slide, please. Now, STEM is a business priority, and again, I apologize, there's a little formatting issue here. The rigorous STEM education does prepare women for executive leadership. If you weren't on the intro, I am a emergency room physician, the background of critical care as well, but I have spent my time in the C-suite and executive leadership and then directorships sort of all over the world, which has been lovely. I currently run my own company. I'm CEO. But executive leadership training requires a very vigorous STEM education because it's math and science and tech, and business itself can be considered part of that STEM education. And this is foundational for tech advancements, economic innovation, and growth, both personal and professional. Next slide, please. STEM skills are translatable to non-STEM occupations. Well, I would hope so, because 35% of STEM jobs are in non-STEM occupations. But think about how useful those skills are in every single other occupation. One of the examples I like to use is one of the greatest cooking schools in the world is called the CIA, the Culinary Institute of America. And up to 30 to 40% of their education is actually the business of cooking, the business of running a restaurant, the science of cooking. There's chemistry, there's all of those science of business things. So those are STEM skills that are in a chef. And so you think about the translatableness of that education. And I love this quote. A whole range of STEM skills have become essential for jobs that never would have been considered STEM position. It's interesting, though, if you look at the second part of this quote, as our education system is currently structured, students often acquire those skills within a STEM track, not a course here and there, but through a STEM-based track, whether it's parallel to the track you're on or not parallel to it, done at a different time. Those STEM skills are absolutely necessary. Next slide, please. To me, STEM means you're broadly diverse and I like the term functionally adaptable. And what that means is you can take you and plunk you in all these different environments, and you can be successful professionally because you bring those skills to whatever environment and you can easily adapt. That's one of the things a STEM education helps you to do. You can pivot very quickly in a lot of different fields because science education teaches you how to think on your feet. Next slide, please. Now, there are challenges specifically on the executive leadership level. When I was a corporate executive, a C-suite executive, I would go to East Coast meetings. So this was in the United States on the East Coast, or I would go to national meetings and would not see a lot of female faces. And the female faces that I saw were very recognizable because we had these very small little groups. So you don't see as representative on the lower levels, the mid levels, or even at the highest level of executive leadership. Women hold about 30% of executive roles globally, but only 10% of CEOs in Fortune 500 companies are female. They were 0% until 1972. Now that's the year I was born. I just turned 53. So up until 53 years ago, there wasn't a single female in a Fortune 500 company. And that was one of the founders of the founding families of the Washington Post. She actually became the CEO. So there was a little bit of nepotism there, but she was the first CEO, and it didn't happen until 53 years ago. Women are about 50% of entry-level workforce, yet only 25% advance to senior management. A quarter of women believe their gender played a role in missing out on the raise, promotion, or career advancement. I would say this would actually probably be a higher statistic based upon personal experience and just from polling my friends, and especially in this last lecture that I gave, again, similar lecture in it was out in Wisconsin. Every single person in that room, every single person in that room raised their hand when I asked if you feel that you've been overlooked or didn't get a promotion. And that was 100%. It wasn't, the room was packed. So that was 100%. So I feel that this is 25% is much less than the statistic there. I'm curious what everyone's experiences are, and maybe we can talk a bit at the end. 97% of women believe that flexible working arrangements, that requesting those adversely affects chances of promotion. And we see this most commonly, especially in the childbearing ages. Women are afraid to ask for time off after work. I will tell you, and I'm not proud of this, I returned to work 11 days after I delivered my son with a C-section. I didn't even have my stitches out by the time I returned to work, 11 days. That is completely unethical, but had to return back to work. So I've been affected personally there. So what do women want to excel in business leadership? The biggest ask is for developmental support. And that's when we are in our young and beginning careers in our 20s. And then company developmental support is later on in our 30s, still highly requested. We want leadership training, confidence building. The theme of imposter syndrome, you will see that all through women's empowerment and science conferences. No matter how educated and accomplished we are, we still feel that maybe we shouldn't be in that room. And I highly encourage you to not only go into the room, I want you to kick those doors open. Don't open them, kick them open. Because I know if you're here, then that's the kind of woman that you are. That's the kind of person you are. We want more critical thinking and training. And what's interesting is what we bring to the table. When you look at this was a poll of women and men, women are better at being honest and ethical. And only about, people only said three would only say that men are more honest and ethical. Well, I think honest and ethical is the way to run a business personally, but it's also way to run a science experiment, how to run a lab, how to run a classroom. Men are considered better at taking risks, but and when you look at the disproportion there, women are not considered as risk takers, where I would vehemently disagree with this for all women in science. Next slide, please. What are the benefits of a diverse leadership? Well, organizations, this is a beautiful graphic, that financially outperform industry competitors have more women in leadership. And there's many different reasons why, and there's many different reasons why not. But if you take a business that is run by a smart person with an education background in STEM, who is ethical and honest and treats their employees well and gives people a good role model, that tends to make a good corporate environment. And corporations that have a good corporate environment internally tend to also perform well externally. And the data is very sound on that. Teams with a diverse leadership are 70% more likely to capture new markets and drive innovation. So it's not just the STEM education, but it's the diverse leadership. And interestingly enough, we talk about corporate satisfaction. It's about 25% higher than companies that do not have a gender diverse leadership team. Next slide, please. I love the saying that unity is strength, but diversity has advantages. And engineers aim to address critical problems facing humanities. This is a wonderful quote from a engineer, Dr. Damarino. Having more diversity among engineers brings broader perspective and experiences and can result in more effective solutions. And this is not just diversity of gender, it's ages, educations, global experiences. Where you're raised and your experiences around you can definitely shape what you bring to a problem, a solution at a company. Next slide, please. So when we talk about equity, equality, and meritocracy, and depending on where you are in the world, these are hot topics or not hot topics. I love meritocracy. And meritocracy provides opportunities based on your ability, and it has a very high probability of success. Without inclusion, however, meritocracy is an absolute illusion. We have to be at the table to have success. And unless we're at that table, unless we're included there, we do not have a probability of success. So without inclusion, meritocracy is an illusion. Next slide, please. What are some of those social and political hurdles? Well, there are global disparities, and the fairness of opportunity does not equal equality of outcomes. And achieving STEM gender equality does benefit national and global economies. Look at this graphic. For male and female respondents in STEM, do women experience more institutional and cultural barriers or stigma from men? And the answer here, yes. It's 90% yes, not a question. We all think this, but what are we doing to fix the problem? Next slide, please. Look at this bias study. In the 1980s, women in computer sciences were tracking to be right where men were. And this was right around the time that computers moved into homes, but yet they were seen mostly as toys. Well, these toys were marketed to boys and men. And there became a very specifically gendered marketing, which affected video gaming. And video games often bridges children into computer science and coding and AI and learning tech skills. And because of the early marketing to a younger age, there was less female interest. And so less females sought science education. So right around the time computers entered homes as, quote, toys, that's when women's involvement in computer science started to drop off. So I thought this was a fascinating case study in how not to trend upwards. Thank you. Next slide. And what are our perceived barriers to these leadership? Well, we don't ask for sponsors, whether we don't see them around us, which is quite common, or sometimes we're afraid to ask. Seeking mentors. One of my mentors actually just passed away, and she had such an incredible impact in my life. And she sought me out. I did not seek her out. She sought me out, and she said, "You need someone like me." And I loved it. She kicked my door open, and for that I'm eternally grateful. But that is not given to every woman, and that was a gift. We need to ask for more access. We need to pursue jobs, opportunities beyond our experiences. I highly encourage everyone watching to apply for something that they are not perfect for. And that is a great way to prove yourself in a new industry or a new job. You'll never know. Women tend not to ask for promotions or ask for raises, even if they know that their male colleagues with the similar experience, similar education are getting promotions, raises, or are paid more per hour. Next slide, please. How do we reform this? Well, there's about 5 things that have been identified both in literature and practice that have been successful. And one of those is equal access to early and quality STEM education. We use our STEM history to ignite our passion. If you do not know your own history, how can you get passionate about the potential for you building on the work that others have done? We need targeted programs, mentor initiatives, and curriculum enhancements that challenge stereotypes and biases, and to foster a diverse range of visible, accessible, inspirational, and relatable role models. And for me, one of my favorites, I loved Star Trek growing up. At first, I'm like, I'm going to be an astronaut, and I loved Uhura. And it was to see somebody involved in science. I also love Dr. McCoy, but that's just me. We need to create supportive work environments, policies promoting meritocracies, and very transparent hiring practices. Supporting flexible work arrangements. Not everyone can work from home, but there are very flexible work arrangements. For example, for me, I work nights. I work night shifts. Number one, nobody else wants to do it. And number two, it lets me be a corporate executive during the day on my days off, in the hours off. And then tailored mentorship and leadership development programs specifically for individuals, but also for individuals that may not have opportunities otherwise. Next slide, please. Constant collaboration and reevaluation. And this has to be on every level: government, academic institutions, and industry. And these strategies have to promote STEM gender equality and inclusion, understanding it may not equal outcome, but we can't even consider being at the table if we don't have that background to get to that table. And then the mechanisms that continuously monitor and say, is what we're doing working? Is it helping us or hurting us? Next slide, please. The good news, and this to me is, I think this is great news, global STEM education and employment gender gap has been significantly reduced between 2016 to 2023 in all but one country around the world. Steady progress towards gender equality of opportunity, and women are more vocal in their desire for education, leadership, and authority. We are kicking in those doors. So 2016, it was 21%. It's now 26%. Is it a huge leap? No, but it is steady progress. We want more, we demand more, and there will be, but there's steady progress. Next slide, please. The wage gap itself is also narrowing. So these are US statistics, but in 1973, women did earn about 57 cents on the dollar for each dollar men earned. In 2023, women earned 84% of what men earned, and that's controlling for race, ethnicity, education, age, and geography. But here is the really interesting part. Parenting is decisive in the wage gap. Because mothers, if just go back one, thank you, I appreciate it, because this is a really important statistic. So mothers, 25 to 34, earned 85% as much as fathers that age. However, if they are not the primary caregiver, they are 97%. 97% of what a male, you are having fun with the slide. Go back. That is such an important statistic. I want people to focus on it. I even put like a little exclamation point there, please. Because if a woman is not a primary caregiver, she is earning the same salary as a male. Now, I am not saying, I say this as a mother, I am not saying give up your job, but I'm saying the wage gap is slightly artificial because it doesn't take into account the other things that women are doing. Good Lord, if we were paid for everything we did at home, we'd earn 300% what a male does. But for me personally, I am not the primary caregiver. My husband is. He has actually given up his job to support me. I earn 100% of everything in my household, but at work, I also have an absolutely equal pay to any other person on the job, whether they are male or female. Next slide, please. These are some additional references. I highly recommend these 3 books on the side. I've read them. They are not part of too many academic listing for education, but they're all great. And so I've cited them on the side, some additional references. Next slide. So in summary today, I just want to start with this quote. This is a beautiful quote. We need women who are so strong that they can be gentle, so educated they can be humble, so fierce that they can be compassionate, and so passionate they can be rational, and so disciplined they can be free. I think it speaks to women in general, but specifically women in STEM, because this describes us all. We are absolutely fierce. And our talents and innovation potential are often limited by systemic barriers and biases. We can rectify these gender imbalances, and to do it, it is absolutely essential for a meritocratic, inclusive workforce, driving innovation and career advancement. To address this underrepresentation of women and specifically of racial minorities, it requires a multifaceted, collaborative approach. And this STEM education is critically important to be functionally adaptable in our rapidly shifting political and employment landscape. Next slide, please. This is where to find me. Again, this is one of my emails. I have a website as well. I would love, if you want a copy of the lecture, reach out to me. I'm going to take a nap in the night shift after this, so I won't send it to you tonight. I can promise you that. But if you email me, I'm always happy to send you a lecture. You can DM me on LinkedIn as well. I'm easy to find. So I'm going to open up my chat box so I can see if anyone had any questions. And if anyone does have any additional ones, I'm happy to answer. And then if our moderator would just let me know when time is, but I'm happy to. Oh, it looks like it was a camera question, so not even for me. If anyone has any questions, please, I'd love to answer. Thank you so much. And I do appreciate your attention this morning.
And that's great. That's really excellent. That was a very enlightening speech. And so I hope like people thoroughly understood what you want to express. and that's the reason might be they're not in any more questions on this.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. Yes. Brave woman working nights. Woof. Yeah. Night shift in the emergency department is, and I work in Florida. If anyone's familiar with Florida, the myth of the Florida man is, it's not a myth. It's crazy. Um, yeah,
So
it's interesting.
like
Actually, so maternity rights after work are actually one of the most common reasons women leave jobs, especially STEM. Because a lot of STEM jobs, especially if they are in, for example, research labs, may involve things that are harmful potentially harmful for reproduction and fertility. And so women who are in that childbearing age or have trying to get pregnant or are, for example, home breastfeeding, often give these jobs off. That's cited as a very common reason for women to leave a STEM job, which is, I find, I mean, if the environment is potentially unhealthy enough for a woman, then why is a male there? That means it's potentially unhealthy, and we should be working on making a safer work environment rather than focusing on women having to leave because they've had a child. Oh, thank you for the comments. I appreciate that. I'm so
yeah,
sad I can't sit and listen to everything today. I'll definitely listen to the replay and reach out. But naps are important, as we all know.
definitely. You're gonna get few questions, and we're gonna mail you that's for sure.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And like, thank you so much for the speech. That's really great, and I
Appreciate it.
want a few applauses from our end. So
Well, I'll
please
pre-applaud. I will
us
pre-applaud
to
too.
end on this.
Thank you. And let me, again, my best wishes to everyone today. I'm sure it's going to be the lineup was spectacular. So thank you, everyone. I am
Great.
grateful to your attention today. And thank you very much to moderator and to Helix. I appreciate you.
Great. That's really excellent. Thank you so much, Amy, for your speech. And